Hey everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to talk about Wizards' announcement that the regional championships are going to have open deck lists. And Magic Twitter has been raving about these decisions with really strong opinions on either side. So what I wanted to do is talk about the pros and cons initially, because I'm sure I'll miss some stuff, and what I think about that decision as a whole and whether it's good for Magic or bad for Magic moving forward. So what does open deck lists mean? Open deck lists means that before your match and during sideboarding, you will get to look at your opponent's list. In addition, and I'm not sure how this will work with the regional championships, but with perfect open deck lists, it also means that you can look up people's deck lists. I don't know if this will be true for the regional championships, but that's in the spirit of having open deck lists. Now let's defend Wizards' decision initially. So why did they decide to do this? I think the big reason is coverage. It makes coverage more interesting when you can look at the entire deck. It is great for coverage because it means they can talk about entire deck lists on the coverage without like throwing somebody under the bus of giving away some certain tech. They can have players always say yes to doing the deck text because so what? Like everybody has their deck list anyway. In early rounds, people are willing to go in the feature match area with really interesting decks because frankly, it's a disadvantage for people to see your deck list if you're innovating. And one of the most frustrating things for me as a viewer watching high-level tournaments, especially the Pro Tour, is that I would see a really cool deck I want to try out, but not have the list. So I'd have to wait until the end of the weekend and the hype had died down and I don't care about as much about it anymore before I got to actually see one of those deck lists. Because one of my favorite things to do is when I watch these high-level tournaments, playing Magic alongside them, seeing a list I really like or seeing an innovation I really like, and just like playing on one screen and watching it on the other, and I just love that. And you can't do that with closed deck lists. And maybe the only pro as far as like actually playing the game goes is that this will more heavily reward players who are good at playing around certain cards. That if they know their opponents are playing, they know what they need to play, which frankly, if you're playing at this level, you should be good at anyway. But I do think that no surprises might mean that the better player will win more often. However, there are some pretty glaring cons. First off, it makes it so it's much less of a reward for players for knowing the ins and outs of a format. In fact, you don't really even need to know the format if you know what the cards do. You just look at your opponent's deck lists, and if you're all there, you can see what the opponent is trying to do and understand what's going on. Number two, and maybe my biggest gripe with this decision, is that it gives players less of an advantage who are innovating. Now, don't get me wrong, I am the most meta slave person you would ever imagine. I'm the worst. But I think innovation in Magic should be supported, because I think it's really hard to innovate and do well. So when it does happen, that's awesome. But the reality is, especially for new decks that aren't quite totally tuned every little bit, a huge advantage for these new decks is that people don't know about them. And often you can get got with these really cool, innovative cards that are put into decks. And even if we're not talking about a totally new list, we can be talking about playing a cool card in a deck, and you're no longer surprising your opponent with that innovative thing. And I don't really like that. In addition to this is a weird turn Wizards is making, because maybe the most important con is that this is inevitably going to slow down tournaments. I know in their announcement they said that they're going to do their best to make sure tournaments still go at a reasonable pace. But if you have access to more information before a match starts, and if you have access to more information during sideboarding, it is inevitably going to take longer. And they've banned cards for making tournaments take a long time. So this is a weird turn for me. And then I have some other thoughts about it that aren't necessarily pros or cons, but definitely changes things and how the games are played. First off, it informs mulligans. There are certain decks that you have to have certain cards in your hand, or, you can't keep certain types of hands. Often these are hyper-aggressive or hyper-control strategies, which are important that they exist, because it keeps these just good stuff mid-range decks in check. And a big reason to play one of those strategies is that main deck, especially before your opponent knows what deck you're playing, there's a chance that they keep a hand that does nothing against you. And that'll no longer happen game one. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it just won't happen anymore. So I don't know. Similar to these mulligan decisions and sideboarding is that sometimes you just get steamrolled in the first game, and the lands that you play and maybe the 1 or 2 spells that you're able to play before you die are in quite a few different decks. So your opponent has a chance of misboarding against you. And understanding when you are definitely going to lose and picking up the cards to preserve information is totally a skill of Magic, and it gives you a giant advantage in the second game. So now there will be significantly less misboarding, and actually no misboarding because you don't know what deck your opponent is playing. Which again, not sure if it's a pro or con. And in the last, not sure if it's a pro or con, just off the top of my head, is there's going to be less, get 'em with janky cards. Which I like a lot personally, because I am that person that just studies deck lists and knows exactly what's in my opponent's decks and stuff like that. And when I get blown out with a janky card, it's a little tilting. But maybe it's a good thing, being able to blow people out with janky cards and different cards and things weren't expecting. Because remember what I said about innovation. Innovation is probably a good thing. So overall, as a Magic player, I don't think I like open deck lists. As Ryan Botting, the Magic player, open deck lists don't matter for me. I rarely innovate. Like I said, I'm a meta slave. But as a Magic viewer, I really love the idea of open deck lists. I don't think this is going to ruin Magic like a lot of the doomsday Twitter users like to say. I think what this will do is it'll make coverage much, much better. And overall, I think that's an important part of making our game move further into the mainstream and making sure Magic never dies. So what do you think? Please let me know in the comments. If there are any other pros and cons I might have missed, or just generally what you think about the idea of having open deck lists at high-level tournaments. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on other social medias, including Twitch. Links are above me and in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.